Hi, and welcome to the Driskell debrief. I was gonna say new hair. Who this? Yes, this is our third week in a row where I've had a change in hairstyle, and I've been talking to y'all about that, about how fun it is to switch it up, and how much I love my natural hair and how versatile it is, and how hard I fight for the Crown Act, which would provide protections for Floridians who want to be able to wear their natural and protective hairstyles. But I just hope that y'all recognize me and that you don't forget who I am, even though my hairstyle is a little bit different this week. How are you? I wonder how your week has been. It has been a very busy week on my end, but good, very good, all good stuff. Let's check in. A few things that are on my mind. So on May 1st, which is wow, that's tomorrow, Florida's 6-week abortion ban will go into effect. And a lot of folks don't realize that this 6-week ban goes into effect tomorrow and that our law effectively is going to change. You might remember, I guess maybe a couple years ago now, um, the legislature, the Republican led legislature, imposed a 15-week abortion ban with no exceptions for rape or incest or human trafficking, which are some of the most horrible, evil circumstances that a person can go through. And then they followed it up the next year with a 6-week abortion ban, which is awful because most people don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. And so when this law goes into effect tomorrow, it's going to impact Floridians for sure, but it's also going to have like a ripple effect across the Southeast because there are so many states in the South that have awful abortion bans. Some states like Alabama have an outright ban. And so there are many people who would travel to the state of Florida to get abortion health care. We know that this is a personal medical decision that should be left between the patient and their doctor and their family. We don't need Tallahassee politicians looking over our shoulders, telling us that they know what's best for us and for our families. And that is why we will continue to remind you on this live stream that this November, on November 5th, on Election Day, you have the opportunity to vote to protect abortion access. Abortion is on the ballot. Please vote yes on 4. And keep in mind, this is not a Republican issue. It's not a Democratic issue. It's not an independent issue. There were Republicans, Democrats, and independents, more than 1 million Floridians who signed petitions to get this ballot initiative passed and to get it on the ballot, to get it approved and to get it on the ballot. And so at this point, it's all of us versus a small minority of extremist politicians who refuse to listen to what we want. So please make sure that you are registered to vote and that people that you know are registered to vote so they can go out and make their voices heard. So tomorrow it is a somber day. And to mark that occasion, Vice President Harris is actually coming down to DC to be with us here in Florida and to try to spread the word about what's happening with this abortion ban, how rights and freedoms are being restricted and taken away, and to encourage people to be involved and to activate, to be engaged, and to vote. So I will get to travel tomorrow to Jacksonville to be with the Vice President and to uplift all of this with Floridians from all across the state who are paying attention to this issue. So that's been big. You'll remember last week, President Biden was here. Now we got Vice President Harris. Florida clearly is in play, and we all need to remember that. I know we've been down. It feels like we've been down on our luck for a long time in Florida. I know that. I get that. But that's the thing about pendulums. They always swing back. And right now we're at a point where I feel like it's just getting to that point where it's poised to swing back. But it's not destiny. We're going to have to work really, really hard and make sure that we talk to voters all across the political spectrum about their rights, about their freedoms, and motivate people to turn out. So that's what's been on my mind. And I know there's been other stuff happening since I saw y'all last, but it's so hard to remember because, stuff, new hair, I guess, it's making it hard to remember. So you might also notice that I'm in a different location for this live stream. Usually I come to you live from my kitchen table. But tonight I thought it'd be a little fun to switch it up, and I'm in the kitchen and I am actually cooking dinner. So let me show you what I'm working with. I haven't seasoned them yet, but I got some sweet potatoes that I chopped up. some mushrooms, some red onions. So we're going to drizzle some olive oil on these and get them nice and seasoned, and they're going to be great. I'm going to roast some chicken thighs, which I have here, which I don't think raw chicken is that exciting, so I'm not going to show you that. Maybe I'll show it to you once we've got it seasoned. And we're going to do some green beans too. So we've got a nice, light, healthy, but flavorful meal going on. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to cook while we have our conversation. So let me go ahead actually and tell you about our conversation tonight. We always try to bring you interesting content. So you have heard me talk a lot about our platform, the Florida House Democratic Caucus platform, that every Floridian deserves the freedom to be healthy, prosperous, and safe. And we mean that from the bottom of our hearts. That's the sort of policy that we advocate for. This legislative session, our platform included bills to lower property insurance, to provide more affordable housing throughout the state, because, I know rent is high. Rent is high, and it is hard right now to be able to afford a shot at the American dream. We have a bill to protect workers against heat stress. And if you could believe it, there actually was a bill passed in the legislature this session that does exactly the opposite. It says that local governments cannot have heat protection ordinances. So they basically can't allow local governments to pass ordinances to give workers who work out in the sun, like construction workers or farm workers. Local governments can't pass ordinances to give them protections. Isn't that mean? I feel like that's such a mean and kind of cool thing. We have a bill that protects our environment and tries to protect our health against forever chemicals. Gosh, we had so many good bills in our platform. And one of them on safety is all about gun safety. Not talking about taking away guns from any lawful gun owner. Not talking about that. We're talking about a common sense solution, starting with things like universal background checks, starting with things like safe storage laws. Because if you certainly deserve the freedom to take a shot at the American dream without the fear of being shot at. So tonight, our conversation, we're going to include conversation with two activists who approach these issues from different perspectives. We have someone from Moms Demand Action, just going to put these in the oven, and someone from Students Demand Action. Let me tell you a little bit about our guests. First, we have Mr. Gavin Bendross. Mr. Bendross is a fourth-year criminal justice scholar at Florida A&M University who is actively involved with Students Demand Action to elevate the experiences and empower young people within the gun violence epidemic. Mr. Bendross also is a member of the Students Demand Action National Organizing Board and class president of the FAMU pre-law chapter of Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity International. Please bring to the stage Mr. Gavin Bendross.
How are you doing, Leader Driskell? Thank you.
Hi, Gavin. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well tonight. I'm seeing you cooking.
I know. It's going to be delicious.
I can tell.
Well, let's bring to the stage also our second guest, who is Katie Hathaway. Katie is a mother raising her two teenage boys in her hometown of Jacksonville, and she is currently serving as the co-leader of the Florida chapter of Moms Demand Action. She is engaged, she has worked at the local level, and now is shifting her focus to the state level. Please bring to the stage Miss Katie Hathaway. Hi, Katie.
Thank you, Leader Driskell. It's so great to be with you, and it's great to see you too, Gavin. And your dinner looks fantastic. I'm jealous.
Thank you. Let's hope it turns out all right. So why don't we start with what seems like a simple question, but I'd like you to both describe what is Everytown, what is Moms Demand Action, what is Students Demand Action. Why don't we start with you, Katie, and then we'll kick it over to Gavin to talk about the student perspective.
Sure. Thank you. So I'm a volunteer with Moms Demand Action. We are the grassroots arm under Everytown for gun safety. So Shannon Watts started Moms Demand Action after the tragedy at Sandy Hook. And she started it with just a simple Facebook post, and it grew overnight. And now we are one of the largest grassroots movements in the nation. And we are not just mothers, we are fathers, we're grandparents, we're students, survivors, just concerned citizens fighting for public safety measures that will make communities safer from gun violence. I want to point out that our grassroots movement is nonpartisan. Many of our volunteers, they're gun owners. And so we just want to make our community safer. We want kids to be safe, and we want to keep guns out of the hands of people who should not have them.
All right. Thank you for that. I'm so glad that you uplifted that nonpartisan piece, because I think so often the conversation around guns gets taken to a partisan level, but it's really like an American issue. Do you know what I mean? And it impacts all of our communities. So thank you for that. So Gavin, what is Students Demand?
Students Demand Action works underneath Everytown, and it really enables and empowers the students with information. What we do is advocacy work by empowering each other with studying what goes on in political ballot, and also with our perspective and advocacy stories from our personal experience with gun violence. Students first are enabled to share their story and given a platform and able to connect with each other to first discuss possibilities of what it would be like to speak on legislation if they had the opportunity, and also what they could do within their community. Every town is meant for every purpose, and every city in the country and every campus is affected by Students Demand Action.
I love that. So Gavin, tell us how long you've been involved in Everytown and what inspired you to get involved.
I've been involved with Everytown going on for 5 months now, approaching the 6-month mark line. I first began with the Black Young Changemakers Summit that was hosted in Atlanta, Georgia. And that was my first experience with Everytown. And there, every HBCU student across the nation was gathered in Atlanta. And we had an opportunity to learn about what it means to advocate for gun violence. And we learned about GVP, being gun violence prevention. There we were enabled with professional speaking skills, communication skills, and organizing skills to be able to go back to our campus and lead individuals that might have experienced gun violence to raise their voice and uplift their perspective.
That's awesome. All right, Katie, what about you? What inspired you to get involved in Moms Demand?
So it was a very memorable moment. It was a while back. It was when my youngest son, who was 7 at the time, he's 13 now. So I'll never forget it. It was like the first week of school, he was in 2nd grade, and I picked him up from school, and he got in the car and said, "Mom, my class is going to be the first shot up. It's closest to the front of the school." And my heart sank, and I'm like, I cannot just sit at home anymore, screaming at the TV, talking to friends on Facebook about this crisis. I've got to do something.
Yeah.
And so I decided to start with scheduling a meeting with my state representative, who at the time called himself the Florida gun lawyer. And so I knew I needed to bring more than just my raw emotions into that meeting. And so that's when I got involved with Moms Demand Action. I needed facts into that meeting. And it was extremely frustrating, as you can imagine. We never really saw eye to eye. But I'll tell you this, at the end, I said, well, I'll see you in Tallahassee. I'm going to go over for Advocacy Day with Moms Demand Action in a couple months. And the man, quite frankly, kind of chuckled at me. And despite his attitude, I still went. I'm so glad I did. I was able to meet hundreds of volunteers from across the state, students and survivors of gun violence. And I was so inspired that I went back home and started a local group in my area of Jacksonville Beach. And so I want to just say that many of our volunteers come into this movement for various reasons or fears that we have. But I'll say one of the main reasons that I've stuck around, because this work's not easy. It's not fun a lot of the time, but it's necessary. And so just meeting far too many survivors of gun violence who have suffered the unimaginable of losing a loved one or a child. My friends, these are my friends, and they have turned their pain into action. And so it's to honor their loved ones with action. So I'm in it with them, and they are fighting every day to ensure no one walks a day in their footsteps. So That's what
Right.
kind of got me off the sideline.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing your stories. I mean, part of our theory of the case here is that people, whether they are in the Panhandle or the Florida Keys, whether they're in Central Florida or Tampa Bay, like I am, these policies impact all of us, right? And gun violence doesn't care. Bullet doesn't care if you have an R or a D beside your voter registration card. Like these are issues that impact us all. And maybe, just maybe, if we can start to share our stories, we can start focusing on the commonalities that we have. Maybe we can move past some of the culture wars and really start to envision the Florida that we want to see, and to find ways to, to have the stories of others inspire us so we can figure out where we fit in and so that we can get involved. And, I kind of, when you said that, what the representative said to you, like how he chuckled, like he didn't really seem to care about what you were talking about. And my reaction was, I kind of was like, what did he say? And then I had to take a step back, because that actually doesn't surprise me at all. Because in Tallahassee, we're really in a situation where a lot of folks, a lot of the legislators no longer feel like they have to listen to the people, and they have their own agenda and they push that. And sure, they may be representing their community or part of their community, but we are the Florida state legislature. We represent this entire state. And it's important to keep that perspective. We actually are more of a purple state. Yeah, we've been performing and voting as a red state, but the reality is we have people all across the political spectrum with different opinions and views, and we need to find ways to respect that, I think. So thank you for sharing that. And let me just, so that the audience knows a little bit about what happened in terms of gun bills this session. There was House Bill 1223, which is a minimum age for firearm purchase or transfer bill. Long story short, this bill would have overturned a portion of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act. It would have lowered the minimum age to purchase a firearm from 21 to 18. And it passed the House with a break in the majority caucus. There were 4 Republicans who voted no on the bill, and ultimately it failed in the Senate Rules Committee. But the problem is that we're in a time in the legislature where there are folks who think that part of the solution to the gun violence epidemic is arming kids at a younger age, not actually trying to address some of the underlying issues that are happening with gun violence. So that was a very troubling bill. Last year alone, there were nearly 350 school shootings in America, the highest total on record. And it left 191 victims dead, 191 souls gone, lives lost, families impacted. 191 victims injured and 57 dead. So data shows that 18 to 20-year-olds commit gun homicides at triple the rates of adults who are 21 and older. And access to firearms is strongly associated with higher youth suicide rates. So a very problematic piece of legislation that ultimately didn't pass, but this is what we're dealing with in the legislature. And then let me also tell you about House Bill 17, which was the expiration of mandatory waiting period for firearm purchases bill. So basically, the 3-day waiting period would expire 3 days after a gun purchase, regardless of whether or not a background check had been completed. This also would have overturned a portion of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act. And let me just say about that act, for people who don't know, in 2018, after the Parkland tragedy, and this is when I was running for office, so I wasn't elected yet, but I was tracking what was happening in the legislature. After the Parkland shooting, the legislature came together in a bipartisan way and decided to pass this Marjory Stoneman Douglas Public Safety Act. And it actually had a lot of good policy in it, trying to protect our communities from gun violence. But the further we've moved away from that point in time, the looser these gun laws are becoming. And they're starting to turn their backs on the families that they made these promises to, in terms of this bill. So that just kind of gives you a flavor for those of you out there of what we're dealing with in the legislature in terms of these bills. So, let's talk a little bit about, well, feel free, actually, Gavin, Katie, chime in. Like, what do you think about that legislation?
So far, when talking to students, a lot of them didn't actually know what it was to study a statute or what HB 1223 or HB 17 were. And in class lecture, educating them about it, there was a lot of feedback as to should an 18-year-old be able to purchase a firearm, being the difference between 21 and 18 as a student that could be in high school or a student that could be in college. Given that a lot of students in college could be 18, it was a large advocacy feedback, and students felt that maybe it could be a legislation that would be worth it. But given that lecture, given back and forth the statistics of how students in high schools are largely affected by the fact that 2023 was the greatest year for gun shootings at schools, it was then worked through and given them an opportunity to see that maybe there's a bit more pieces into it, and that moves us into gun sense. So the largest thing about Students Demand Action not only is studying legislation and learning how to move within politics and advocate for laws, but also how to promote gun sensibility so that people that are gun owners know how to properly own them safely, so that people that have guns around children know where and how to educate those children to stay clear from or what to do in the aspect of being in the presence of gun violence. So really students are enabled to, one, have their own opinion, yes, about the legislation that's at hand, but also learn about the process that goes into voting and making a difference about that, moving then into voter education, registration, and mobilization.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Education is key. Katie, what do you think?
I just, it's shameful. It's hard to watch. And I just want to say, every legislative session, I take a deep breath. And I watch y'all religiously on the Florida channel, and I see our gun safety allies filing those amendments to this dangerous bills. And it's just shameful that we've got some politicians who want to roll back provisions that were enacted in the wake of tragedy to make our community safer. All for what? Somebody's right? But what about our right to feel safe from gun violence? And like you said, we talk about freedom in this state. Our freedom to send our kids off to school and not be shot, or go out into the community and not live in fear of gun violence. And it's the makeup of the legislature right now. And that's why voting matters. And we have to vote on this issue. To watch them ram through permitless carry last year, like literally, I was there the first, very beginning of session, and it was in its last step in the Senate. And I was testifying in the Senate committee. And then our governor goes and signs that into law behind closed doors overnight in the wake of the tragedy of the mass shooting at the Covenant School in Nashville. So we really have got to stop voting for people who want to weaken our laws or who put donations from the gun lobby over our lives. And that's the bottom line. And we have a chance to do that. And I want to amplify this right now. These school board elections are happening in August here in this state. Many are going to be decided in the primary on August 20th. And we are seeing the push to arm teachers again. We fought that every step of the way when they expanded the Guardian program in 2019 to arm teachers in the state. Thankfully, most of the districts across this state have opted not to do that. But I will tell you, in Duval County, I'm in every school board meeting, every workshop. They are trying to put more guns into our schools. Some have bought into the narrative that more guns are going to make us safer. And so these school board elections are critical for many reasons, but for seeing this push like we're seeing to put more guns into our schools right now. And then again, voting on this issue in November. We won't forget how people have voted on this issue during legislative session in years past. So that's how I feel. I feel strongly.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for sharing that. And I feel strongly. I think there are many Floridians who do. In fact, I think probably a majority of Floridians do. Before that permitless carry bill passed in 2023, there was a poll that was done that showed that 77% of Floridians did not want that. 77%. Okay. We know that, when it comes to universal background checks, for example, I think it's like 90% or so of Americans who are in favor of that policy. That's a super majority of voters, is what I say. right? And that can't be all Democrats. That can't be all Democrats, right? At 90%, that's got to be some Republicans. There's got to be some independents in there. And, we really are just in a time where in Tallahassee, the folks who are in charge, the majority is not listening to the will of the people. And I don't think that's okay, regardless of what party is in charge. We got to listen to the will of the people. We got to be in touch with the people. And I think there's been too much done to willfully ignore the will of the people in favor of scoring political points, and that's not all right. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for coming to Tallahassee. Here's the other thing I want y'all to both know. As a legislator who's up there, we see you, we see y'all, the advocates come and testify in hearings. And we know oftentimes that you get shut down, that you only get 30 seconds to speak when you really should be allowed like at least 2 minutes. That sometimes, public commentary just gets cut off altogether, and that none of this is okay. But just know that there are those of us who do care and who are watching and who appreciate your advocacy. The other thing that I'll say about advocacy is that I have seen, not on every bill, but sometimes it's that public advocacy that makes the difference between whether a bill passes or not. And that's why we have to contest everything. That's why we have to fight for our rights and to have our voices heard, no matter how bad it looks with the odds stacked against us, because every now and again it can change the outcome. So thank you for all that you do. Gavin, I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I think there's something about the, or maybe it's both of you, but the Be Smart framework. Could we talk about that? Like the opportunity that might be you, Katie, I'm not sure, but the way to like normalize conversations between parents and kids about gun violence.
Gavin and I can both share. Gavin, do you want to go first or do you want me to? It's up to you.
I'll let you go first. Students in action, a bit of a different take on it.
Yeah. This is Mom's. So Be Smart is our public education campaign on secure storage. And so the framework is geared towards adults because we know it's the onus of adults to keep the kids from accessing guns, which happens every day in this country. Kids are obtaining loaded, unsecured guns and unintentionally shooting themselves or somebody else. And I say these aren't accidents. These are preventable tragedies with responsible gun ownership and secure storage. So we bring this out to the community, hand out gun locks, have these conversations just to normalize them, because I will tell you, you can spot it a mile away. Somebody's coming over wanting to get confrontational. It's about guns. And I'm like, we always come to the same agreement. We agree on it and we want responsible gun ownership. And so, these conversations are important, and we've had a lot of great successes across the state. I would love to share some with you, just because we don't always see the legislative wins like we see in other states. But here in Duval, I will just say across the state, we've seen a lot of action at the school district level. I advocated in 2022, I think, here in Duval, and our school board unanimously passed a resolution that requires the superintendent to notify families of the importance of secure storage every school year, just like any other safety issue. And our former superintendent, Dr. Diana Green, and our chief of police, Greg Burton, filmed a Be Smart public service announcement. And it was really impactful that went out. And so next thing you know, we've got districts across the state doing the same thing. Broward, Alachua, Orange, Hillsborough. So this is a life-saving message. And so these are smaller wins that add up. And so we do celebrate them. And I will say here in Duval, we have a new mayor, Donna Deegan, and she's awesome. She's the best. And she incorporated Be Smart into her platform when she ran for mayor. And we filmed a video. She promised to get secure storage rolled out in Duval County, and she fulfilled that promise. She filmed a public service announcement with our sheriff here about the importance of secure storage, because locking up guns up in the home and in vehicles. Vehicles are now the nation's largest source of stolen firearms. So this is life-saving work. And so we've partnered with tax collectors' offices in Hillsborough County to get this out. We're working with UF Health, the nursing school in Alachua County down in Gainesville. We've partnered with the diaper bank here in Duval County, getting this out with diaper bundles. So there's just lots of different ways to get this message out. I've been out before Jaguar games, handing out gun locks. So this is life-saving work. And so I'm just really proud of our team in Florida for getting this life-saving Be Smart message out across Florida.
That is awesome. Gavin?
For the students demand action, Be Smart again was talking about gun safety and gun storage, and being that vehicles are now the largest place where firearms are being stolen. As for the students, we speak to other students about that fact. And then we also ask them certain questions about what they feel about guns being in the presence of places that they are. At FAMU, unfortunately, we did lose one of our very, very appreciated cheerleaders last year to an unfortunate altercation, and that ran throughout the campus. And what we do with talking to the students that have the opportunity to speak with us and would like to speak with us is we first engage with them, we internalize with them, we practice with them, and then we apply. So as far as talking about Be Smart and gun safety and gun storage, we first explain what it means to have a safe storage. That means if you have a firearm and you're in your vehicle, there's a lockbox that you have, and you can place it here, you can place it there. It depends on what size of firearm that you have, and that's another dissentment between what is a assault rifle and what is a handgun. And these are two different things that even students ask questions about because they see these things in the communities that they live in when they leave from campus. So giving them that opportunity to know what it means to safely storage a weapon, they now have that information to go back home with. Because the second part about internalizing is realizing you as a student are at campus and learning things at an institution that the people in your community with majority of the firearms might not be learning.
That's awesome. And I remember reading about that cheerleader who passed away. I'm so sorry for the campus's loss. I know that must have been devastating. It's devastating. You know,
It truly is. I mean, that's something that affects the entire student body and the faculty. And it's an issue that is someone that's far too normalized, unfortunately, because past that in 2016 during a traffic stop, there are small occurrences where each student has to relate to one another. And that's a moment where it's out of fear, unfortunately. And what Students Demand Action does is look to promote it to be towards peace. If we're all looking to prevent gun violence, we're all looking to prevent violence in general. That means being able to have key social skills to stopping situations from escalating in the first place, having key skills to know when to leave from a situation in the first place, and then also knowing what it is that you could communicate with other people to try and promote that safety even further.
Now, Katie, it's my understanding that you recently transitioned from doing local organizing to statewide organizing. Could you talk about like what that looks like for you? And congratulations on that also.
Thank you. And again, this is all volunteer work. It's a lot,
Right.
but yeah, I love local organizing. I'm very involved in my community. I led here for many years with Moms Demand Action and then other groups. I'm very passionate about public education. But now I'm co-leading the chapter, Florida chapter, with my friend Jennifer, and our work just looks a little bit different. We're not so much on the ground in our communities. A lot of the work is done behind the computer. We like to say a lot of it's the unglamorous work of organizing, but it's necessary. So just making sure we have groups across the state that we support, and making sure that we are there to support them however they need, get them the resources, the tools to get in their communities doing this necessary life-saving work. So that's a little bit of that, but I'd be happy to share more about just like the spaces that Moms Demand Action works in and how our local groups do organize and work as well.
I promise you folks, we did not set this up, but that's the perfect segue, Katie. Talk to people about that, because if they're listening and they want to get involved, like, where do they even start?
Sorry, I'm breaking up on my end. I broke up on my end really quick. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I would love to share
It's
just a little bit about how we
happened.
organize and work with Moms Demand Action. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So with Moms Demand Action, I like to say, like, I think of it conceptually as like a top-down, bottom-up approach almost. So yeah, we advocate at the federal level. We need action at the federal level. But change is very slow and it can be very frustrating. So we see change much more quickly at the local level. And so A lot of our work is done in our communities, and a lot of our work is supporting other organizations that have been in this movement well before Moms Demand Action, oftentimes in the communities disproportionately impacted by gun violence. So either working to interrupt the cycle of it or address the root causes of gun violence. And so oftentimes we are supporting those groups, like going out in the community, also bringing Be Smart. And then also, this, we advocate at the state level, and we're there every legislative session. And then we also meet with our legislators in district in between. So that's a little bit of the glimpse of the way that we work with Moms Demand Action.
And if people want more information, where do they go? How do they, if somebody's out there watching and they want to get involved, how can they do so?
We make it super easy. The easiest way to do it is texting the word ready to 64433. You can always go on to momsdemandaction.org to find out more information. And really nifty, handy dandy, we've got a app. It's the Demand Action app that you can download, and you can turn on your notifications to get alerts about news or any action alerts that we have going on, and then also to find events in your local area. So that's the easiest way to stay involved.
That is awesome. We'll make sure that we put those links up in our link tree on our profiles. Tell me, Gavin, what about students? What can they do?
Students Demand Action is very simple as well. All you have to look up is Students Demand Action online or everytown.org and click volunteer. There should be a Students Demand Action organization on about at least 100 campuses within the East Coast.
Wow.
I mean, every school from Florida, Atlanta, or Georgia, I apologize, Alabama, Texas, Washington, North the Carolinas. All you have to do is be on your campus, interact with the Students Demand Action volunteer, and from there you have every opportunity to advocate. You first can speak within leadership trainings. You have an opportunity to attend weekly or monthly calls. And from there, right now, our main focus is educating students on campaign. So if you have any interest in voting or participating with volunteer hours and trying to learn how to run a campaign, we're helping with that and educating on how that's ran.
That is awesome. Let me tell y'all are getting love in the chat. So Betsy Braden says, hi, Moms Demand Action in Tampa saying hello. Cheryl Ann is tuning in. Thank you. Sarah Fortney is a former school board member in Polk County who is an amazing human being and all about it, all in it for the kids. And she's sharing about what the active shooter drills have been like for students. Thank y'all so much, Chris Webb, for tuning in. We always love having you. This is great. Really appreciate it. And I'm just curious. So tomorrow I'll have an opportunity to see Vice President Harris. I'm sure it'll be very quick. They keep that thing moving. But this inspires me to ask you if there was one thing that you could say to the president or to the vice president, if there was one thing you would want them to know. And I know they are allies on this issue, to be clear, but what would you want them to know?
I would just say thank you. They have been fierce gun safety champions. I would just give her a hug and thank her and tell her to keep going.
Okay. And Gavin, what about you?
I would tell them that students care. Students have a lot of tenacity and a lot of power with their opinion and their voice. And to engage with students more is to tap into an entire new population of voters, and especially voters that are getting involved for the first time. Students care.
Yeah. And now I'm going to flip the script. If there's one thing you could say to Governor DeSantis, keeping in mind that this is a PG show, all right? Okay, listen. What would you say?
I would definitely say to consider the future of the development of our children, because what I've learned and been experiencing, and even being from Polk County to hear about the shooter drills, having gone through some of those, during 10th through 11th grade, there was a drastic switch from having to practice every week. And then I remember a time before that, from, I want to say 2019 to 2020, you didn't even have these things. So there's an entire generation of students that are going through certain legislative changes that even past that term served in office are going to be detrimentally affected. Students and the children matter. certain things should be considered.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I would quote my friend Crystal, and I would tell him and all of our legislators who have not been on the right side of this issue is don't wait till gun violence knocks on your door to do something if you are in the power to do something about this. And going back to what you said, Leader Driskell, this isn't a right or left issue. It's a life or death issue. And 120 Americans are shot and killed every single day. Hundreds more are shot and wounded. Guns are the leading cause of death for American children and teens. And you are failing our kids by rolling back our gun laws and sitting on your hands, accepting this to be the norm in our country. That's what I would say to him.
Yeah. Thank you for being so heartfelt. Thank you for sharing your stories and being vulnerable. And thank you also for your advocacy and for everything that the two of you do, both seen and unseen. You know, I know volunteerism doesn't pay in terms of monetary, but man, I know that it is just so good for the soul. But what you are doing actually is helping to save lives. And that is phenomenal. So thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you later. And I'm going to try to communicate that message to Vice President Harris tomorrow. If I get the chance, I would love to share with her what the two of you shared with me. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So what an awesome conversation. And I am so inspired because despite all of the culture wars that we're experiencing across the state, heroes are rising among us all across the state, right? You got folks in Jacksonville like Katie. You got Gavin, who is a college student, who literally has the weight of the world on his shoulders in terms of, finishing his final exams. He's about to graduate. He's a senior in college. By the way, shout out to all the seniors out there. I know that this is a big graduation weekend coming up. It's graduation season. It's final season. Y'all make sure you finish strong. Team Fentress loves young people. We love students. We love your energy and your activism. So we wish you well in that. Special shout out to Kat on our team, who will be graduating from University of South Florida this weekend. But it is an inspiration to me that Katie, who was going about her own life, and Gavin, who has so much on his plate as a young person, they spend their time and their energy working on this issue, trying to create the sort of Florida and the sort of America, frankly, the country that we want to have in the future, and make sure that we're leaving this place better than we found it. So that is inspirational to me. I am always going to remind you here that Florida is in play this election season. There are ways that we can have real success in our state. The first is we are going to break that Republican supermajority in the Florida House. We're going to break it. We're going to break it. We're going to flip at least 5 seats to get us out of the supermajority. And basically that helps us procedurally to be able to stop some of these bad bills from happening. We are going to say yes to Amendment 4 and do everything we can, talking to our friends and our neighbors, our family members, whether they're Democrat, Republican, or NPA, about the importance of protecting medical freedoms. We can talk to people about Amendment 3, which is for the legalization of adult use of marijuana. We can talk to people about these issues and make sure they turn out the vote. I am going to do everything in my power to fight along you every step of the way. I will be fighting alongside you every step of the way. But please know and understand that we're going to have to do this together. It is going to take each and every one of us to do what we can in our respective communities, in our families, on our job, to talk to people and make sure that they are registered to vote and that they turn out to vote. Make sure that you are registered to vote. A lot of folks have been kicked off the vote by mail rolls. When I say a lot of folks, actually, I guess I mean all of us, because there was a bad bill that passed and DeSantis signed it into law, and it kicked everybody off the vote by mail rolls. So now you could be expecting a ballot. It might never come. Don't wait until November. Just go ahead and request your vote by mail ballot now. It will make sure that you're able to vote effectively and safely. And you also want to make sure that your contact information is up to date with your supervisor of elections. We don't want to take anything for granted. We don't want to take anything for granted. This is such an important election. And I believe in us, Florida. I know we can do this. There's also been a lot of talk like, oh, with the ballot initiatives, you got to get above 60%. We can do that too. I know we can. We did it in 2018 when we wanted to give returning citizens the right to vote. That's, formerly convicted felons. We did it when we wanted the minimum wage to be $15 an hour. We've done it when we wanted to protect Florida's environment with Forever Florida. So we know how to do this. Don't let the big scary numbers make you feel intimidated. We can do this one step at a time, one neighborhood, one block at a time. Let me tell you something else. If you're looking for opportunities to get involved, a lot of the local parties need precinct captains. That's something that you can do. It keeps you very local. It keeps you engaged in your neighborhood. It lets you, kind of walk your neighborhood and talk to people and make sure that they vote. That's something that you can do that's easy to do. All you got to do is contact your local party to do it. You can always reach out to us. And please know that we will put you to work, honey, wherever you are in the state. We have elections to win in Central Florida, in Tampa, down in South Florida, all over the state. And we need you. And you can volunteer even from the comfort of your own home, or if you are in the geography for one of our targeted races, we will certainly and gladly accept your volunteerism. You can reach out to me on my website at venturesforflorida.com. That's venturesforflorida.com. You can visit the website and sign up as a volunteer and make sure that you stay connected, and we will share those volunteer opportunities with you. Please also know that we love to hear your stories. I mean, Gavin and Katie were just phenomenal. If there are stories that you want to share with us about how these policies are impacting you, and it could be anything, it could be property insurance, affordable housing, gun safety, gun violence, it could be abortion access, book bans, education policy, whatever it is, feel free to go to the website and get in contact with us because we love to hear from you. And thank you so much. There are many of you who tune in every Tuesday night. I so look forward to this space and being able to have this conversation with you. And when I got home tonight, I was telling the team, like, I got to cook dinner though. And they said, just let it roll, right? Like, we've created this great space. And so it's my pleasure to kind of let you in on my world a little bit and what I've been cooking tonight. And thank you for engaging in this great experiment with me. And make sure that if you like what we're doing here, please share this content with a friend. Please like us on social media and follow us so that we're able to, you're able to see when we go live and help us amplify our content. That's always really helpful. So I think I promised you that I would show you how things turned out, what I cooked. The problem is I'm not really sure that it's ready, but I'm going to open the oven door here and kind of see what we're working with. Oh, that's looking really good. Okay, I'll show you. It looks good enough to show you. So, and for those of you who tuned in with me during the holidays, we had something called the Potato Salad Chronicles, where my Aunt Pam, who makes the world's best potato salad, okay? Aunt Pam said she wasn't doing it. She needed a break. And so my mom tapped me in to make the potato salad. And it was a whole adventure. I forgot one of the key ingredients, like the night before Thanksgiving, the morning of Thanksgiving. I tasted the potato salad that I made the night before. And to be honest with y'all, it was not good. And when I got to my mom's house, we had to doctor it up and figure out how to save the potato salad. And it worked out at Thanksgiving. And then it was much better at Christmas time, I'm happy to report. So let me show you what we've been cooking in our time together. I think the chicken, see if I can do this without dropping it. The chicken turned out great. You can kind of see, I'm trying to like turn my laptop and turn the chicken. Some roast chicken thighs with herbes de Provence. I never took French, so if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, there you go. And then some sweet potatoes and mushrooms and onions, some nice veggies. And then during the conversation, I've been snapping green beans. Some of you might have caught on to that. And so I'm just going to put these in a microwave safe bowl. Add a little bit of, I've got some mushrooms for the umami. Going to add a little bit of already added garlic, salt, pepper, and then I'm going to add a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of water, and cover them and steam them for 4 minutes. It's a great way to cook green beans. It saves a lot of time, and they will taste so fresh. They'll taste almost like if you boiled them in hot water and then took them out and put them in cold water, which is called blanching. And so it lets them stay nice and crisp, very bright green, and they are delicious. So that is what's for dinner on my end. I hope you are having a great evening. Everybody stay safe out there. Thank you for joining us. And please tune in to our conversation next week. Peter says Julia would be proud. Thank you so much, Peter. I appreciate that. I hope she would be proud. Y'all take care. We'll see you next week.